So when I was in the seventh grade, I started playing basketball, and I didn't really do it for any particular reason at the time. Like I didn't really think much of it. My plan was to sort of just do like a bunch of sports from like sixth grade till I graduated, just to like stay physical and stuff. So I was like sixth grade I did swimming. Seventh grade I was like I'm gonna do basketball, and maybe next year I'll do a different sport. So I did seventh grade. I did basketball. I didn't really think much of it. I really wasn't like crazy about it. Like I didn't really engage with basketball that much. But that same year, my friends found out that I was like practicing basketball. Some like a group of my friends, and they invited me to like, hey, you want to come like play basketball with us during lunchtime, because our lunchtime would be like sort of like dispersed with like combined with like sort of break. So you finish lunch, you go fuck around, do whatever you want. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come play. And a lot of that was like playing 1v1s, 3v3s, and that was the way that I sort of getting really into basketball. I started taking it a lot more serious, especially because a lot of those 1v1s were like very ego filled and like trying to be the best like in those group of guys. So I really got into it. And by 8th grade, I was like still doing the practices. I was still going to these like basketball practices, like this place in Qatar had, which is where I lived throughout pretty much most of my life. So I was doing that, and um, eventually I was like I kept like really getting into basketball. I started watching basketball a lot more. I was playing basketball more with my friends, and I started taking it a lot more serious. Like I would sometimes just like play basketball like by myself, like on a hoop that I had in my front yard. So I play by myself, which I wasn't doing the year before. So I was like, hey, I want to really get good at this. I was like, I really want to be a good basketball player. And by ninth grade, by that point, I was like gone through 2 years of like actually playing basketball. Like beginning of my freshman year of high school, I was like, I want to become a professional basketball player. Like that's what I wanted to do. I was really, really in love with basketball. I was just that was like what was I felt like I wanted to do. Like I just it wasn't what I felt. I really wanted to do it. I was like I'm very engaged with the sport. I love playing it like a lot. Like I really want to play in the NBA. Um, so that became what I sought out to do. And in my freshman year, it was about all about making varsity or JV, or we also had a JVB, which is like pretty much below, but like it was like only things that the eighth graders could do and the ninth freshmen could do. So keep that in mind. Um, so of course I tried out for the team, and we had like a 3 day like tryout period. Um, and I remember by the end of it, I was like, "Hey, I think I can make JVB at the very least. Like, I'll make JVB, maybe JV." And I got home, and basically on the third day, you would like wait like an hour after the end of the tryouts. You would get an email saying like which team you made, like when the practice is gonna be. And so I waited for my email, and I didn't get in to any of the teams. I didn't make JVB. I didn't make JV. I didn't make varsity, of course, but I didn't get into any team. And I remember being devastated, like extremely, extremely devastated. I cried. I remember my sister called up one of her friends who was like in varsity, and like who was like actually the captain of the varsity team for our school, and he told me like, "Hey, don't give up on basketball." I was like, "I'm not gonna give up on basketball. Like, I'm still gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna keep playing, and hopefully by my sophomore year, I'll, you know, I'll be a better player than I was, because in fact I hadn't been playing for that long. So I was like, I'll be better by next year, for sure." And then COVID came around, which sort of worked to my advantage because I was like practicing a lot more because I was at home more. It was like right after school I would just be able to go outside and like practice, shoot around, like, but I wasn't like doing the same practices that I was before. I wasn't getting training from like actual coaches. I was like learning from like YouTube as much as I could, doing my own drills, like drawing up my own regiments. I remember I would sometimes do fucking plyometrics to maybe hopefully dunk. I really believed that I was going to be a lot taller than I really am. I'm 5'11", by the way. So I really believe like maybe hey I'll be like 6'3", 6'2", or something like that. Something maybe even taller. Hopefully, I was like maybe just like I'll get really fucking tall jeans. So I was like hoping and praying for that especially. But I was like regardless, I'm still going to push my way to the NBA. And COVID unfortunately didn't work to my advantage because in my sophomore year there were no tryouts, and that was because my because I lived in Qatar at the time. By the time that we were supposed to have tryouts, we were still like in this hybrid of going to school and virtual at home. Like every other day, you would switch between the other, and that also affected like the sports. So the sports like pretty much were canceled that year. So I was like, okay, I'll wait till my junior year. I'm not gonna be able to make JV, but hopefully I'll be varsity ready by my junior year. And I remember that summer I went to the United States to visit my family because I hadn't seen them in so long. I remember my brother really started helping me trying to get better at basketball because he played basketball when he was in high school. So I really looked up to him as like, hey, can you help me like get better at this? Like, what do I need to do? And he was like, you should do your stamina. You should just practice as much as you can. So I took that to heart. I would go every other day to run on a treadmill. And I would do like a 10-minute jog and then another 50 minutes of intermittent sprints. Like I would fucking sprint as fast as I would put the treadmill to the max speed that I could. And then I would just sprint for like 30 seconds until I got tired and then stop, boom, and then wait it out until I'm ready to go again. I would do that like every other day. I did that, in fact, every other day for that summer. So I was really trying to get my like stamina as best as it could because that was something that he emphasized to me. And of course, whenever I could, if I could, I would, have somebody drive me to the nearest basketball court and I would go just shoot around, practice the same drills I learned from YouTube and stuff like that. And sometimes my brother would come with me, and hopefully I was going to be better. And then junior year comes around. By this point, I can only make varsity, so I was like, I need to be ready for varsity. And the tryouts came along, and I remember I I did not score. I think the first day of tryouts, like I didn't score in the scrimmages that they would do at the end. Because if you know anything about basketball tryouts, it ends with like a scrimmage pretty much. You would do a bunch of drills, like skill drills and shit, and then it would end with scrimmages, which is pretty much where the coaches would do the most like analyzing. And I remember the first day I didn't score at all. I was devastated. I was as devastated as I was at the end of the first of my freshman year's tryouts. And I remember I was in the car with my mom and I cried. I cried again. I just burst into tears. Like I couldn't help myself. Like I was like, I don't like I didn't score. Like I worked so fucking hard and I just to not score like in these scrimmages. And you know, keep in mind I also really didn't have like the best relationship with like the coaches and stuff, despite my best efforts of like going to the like like before school they would have like these open gyms and stuff that you could go to and just like play. And I would do that. Like I would go to those. I would try to like, you know, be in better relations with the coaches, better relations with the people that were like playing. Um, and it didn't really work out for whatever reason. I never really got close to the coaches. Never really got close to the players. And in fact, I really didn't mess with some of the guys like on those teams. Even though like I was supposed to like play with them, I just didn't really have like the closest relationship with them, or I just didn't like vibe with them easily. So, but I still pushed through that. Like I was like, obviously, I'm gonna still do whatever I can. And I was like, all right, I didn't score the first day of tryouts. I'm gonna try my best the second and third. I remember I scored in the second and third days. Like I was like, I scored a few points. I didn't really perform like really great. I didn't really perform terrible. I just, eh. And I went home, and the last day of tryouts, went home, same thing, sat in front of my computer, didn't make any of the teams. I mean, I could only make varsity, but I didn't make varsity. And I think I sort of sensed, like, at the end of the third day, like, I don't think Macon varsity. So I think I like cried to myself this time. Like my sister didn't walk in on me crying, so I cried a little bit myself. I was like, I got one more year to make this dream of being in the NBA, which I really worked my ass off at this point to try and make a thing. At this point, I'm 5'11", like, which I was like hoping maybe my senior year I'll get like a growth spurt or something. Didn't happen, but I was like, I gotta really push for the senior year. I was like, maybe I should do like AAU when I go to the United States. So I went to the United States. I didn't do AAU, but that summer I was like, maybe the secret is trying to work on being physically better. So I was like in the gym lifting weights with my brother and stuff. Like we wake up early as hell in the morning, uh, go to the gym, lift weights, like do like these training regimens to help me be more explosive, faster, stronger. Something that could just help me a little more get like an advantage or just be seen over these guys that were already on the team. And of course, I would still play basketball as much as I could. You know, go to the court, practice, all that gist. And um, I remember the senior year tryouts came along. Actually, we had two tryouts, which I'll explain. Is because season basically basketball is a season two sport at our school. So if you were part of a season one activity, at least in this year. I don't know why. I think it was because of the World Cup. So Qatar 2022 World Cup. So that made the winter break longer than it usually was. So they had two tryouts. Basically, one for people that were participating in season one activity, or a like season one like sport, and then they would have a second tryout for those people that missed out on the first one. But they would have pretty much a first cut for those people that attended the first tryout, and then the second tryout would be like, I don't know, I guess replacing people that made the first cut. I guess that's how it worked. And I did, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but I did MUN. What's it called? I was an MUN exec. I didn't foresee this, by the way. This was just sort of put upon us. They just told us like, hey, you can't do the first trial, so I have to do these second trials, like which wasn't what you usually did, like in the previous years. If you were part of the season one or whatever, you just went to the fucking tryouts whenever they were. So I attended the second tryouts. Keep in mind, there's a first cut, which consists now of the guys pretty much from the previous year. And I go to the tryouts with the guys that also didn't try out. It's keep in mind, it's also with the people that made the first cut. So everybody pretty much from the first tryouts and new people trying out for the second tryouts. We're going to the second tryout, and we go to the tryouts. And I kid you not, it was nothing like the first two tryouts I had. Because what we did pretty much for most of these tryouts were run plays. I kid you not, we did none of the things except for the scrimmages. Like we would have like a shorter scrimmage than we would. Keep in mind, but we would run plays because the basketball team, the varsity team, and the JV teams. I mean, at this point, that didn't matter, but both of those teams had games that upcoming weekend. It's like fucking Tuesday, and they have a game on Saturday, I believe. Yeah, Saturday. They have a game that Saturday. So we're trying to get onto this already first cut, which, keep in mind, consists of people from the year before, and we're not doing really drills. We're sort of just like helping out with the plays. Like sometimes you would shoot like or be like the main guy for the drill, but sometimes you would just be a guy just standing in the corner, like moving to the side, or being the guy that passes the ball to the shooter. So most of the times you're not really being able to show your skills or like warm up or anything. You're just running these fucking drills, which keep in mind, the people from previous year probably already know these drills. It's literally from the playbook of our school's team. So we were trying to fucking learn this playbook from guys that were already knew about this. By the way, we did not know this. We came blind thinking that would be like the previous years, and we were bamboozled into running fucking plays for a team that very obviously had a game that they told us had a game that weekend. So it was sort of like I'll try my best. Like maybe if I learn the plays, I literally asked them like after that first day of trials, I was like, "Hey, where can I find this playbook so I can learn how to like run the drills that you guys are like running?" And maybe like if they see that, they see some sort of initiative or so I literally went home that day and I opened the playbook they gave me and I studied it. It really didn't fucking mean much because I think by the end of the second day I realized, "Hey, they're not really looking to see if we're like any better than these guys other than through the scrimmages which are shorter, keep in mind, pretty short, like they were like maybe like 20 minutes and sometimes you would just like not be playing during the scrimmages because they some guys they couldn't fit in at one time. So we're running these plays, the only thing we have is the scrimmages and they have a game on the weekend. At that point I realized I do not, unless I drop fucking 50 in one of these scrimmages, I don't think they're going to put anybody new into this team because the team was pretty much juniors from the previous year. And I mean, at that point, I tried my best still. Like, I went to the third day and I ran the plays. You know, I learned them. I did whatever they asked of me. I didn't complain or anything like that. I did the scrimmages. You know, I did decent or okay as best as I could. I did whatever I could. They have a game in like 4 days, 3 days at this point, and I think I went home. And like I said, the other previous two times I cried. This time I didn't really feel anything. I was like, all right, I don't think I'm gonna make it. Maybe I will. I mean, I was holding some sort of hope for myself, but I was like, based on like how these trials were set up, I don't think I'm gonna make this shit. And lo and behold, I didn't make the varsity in my senior year. So 3 tryouts, 0 for 3, made none of the teams. And at that point, basketball, I mean, I loved playing basketball. Like I love basketball still to this day. But after that, I was, and keep in mind, I was also still doing like my practice things. I was like where they would sort of like play games every once in a while, but like it's not comparable to making J or varsity for your team or for your school. Like there's no scouts coming to that shit. But I was still doing that as well on the side to like practice like as much as I could every week and doing my own thing at home. But eventually, I think I got injured actually in February, like after the tryouts, of course, and I stopped doing that as well. And then when I got healthy again, like a month later, I think it was like an ankle sprain. I played practice basketball again, and I was like, it felt different. Like I was like, I'm not doing this for anything. Like my dream is like pretty much done. I didn't make any of the teams, and at that point, I'm focused on college and trying to get into uni. So I was focused on my applications, or I think applications were done by that point, but like still just trying to get my grades as best as they could be by the end of the year. Um, and yeah, it felt different. It felt like I was just sort of just playing, like I was just sort of doing. I wasn't like reaching any sort of goal by playing, other than like sort of getting better for like, I guess pickup games or whatever. Even though in Qatar they don't really have like places you can really play pickup like that. So um, it became a lot more different and it became a lot less like more depressing because it reminded me a lot of my failed dream of being in the NBA, which I worked pretty hard, I would say, like to make it. There were definitely some things I could have done differently, to better my chances, but yeah, it felt sort of depressing in a way. And I was gonna title this video, I think, my embarrassing uh, failed dream or failed basketball dream, but I don't really want to say that it was embarrassing because I don't regret this at all. Like I don't regret trying to make the NBA at all because it taught me it made first off made me fall in love with like a sport, which you know like actually playing a sport. Like I love football, for example, but I was like, playing is different, and playing basketball was something that kept me physically active. I got so engaged with like playing like the basketball culture and just like engaging with the NBA and like professional sports leagues and keeping in touch with that and like just like the discipline and mentality that came with like those like what would be needed to make the NBA. And it really was like it inspired me. It kept me like driven for those like years and like pushing myself towards something bigger than me. And I don't think that's embarrassing at all. Even though I failed like miserably, I learned so much and I got something really beautiful out of it. Like a love for a game that I might not ever, you know, get to play professionally, but hopefully one day maybe in some way I can be a part of it. But you know, um, yeah, it's a lot to reflect on that because that's probably like my biggest failure, and it was a big failure. Like it would, I didn't, I barely ever got to feel like a success playing basketball, even though it was like my pursuit for like all of high school. But um, I remember it was also especially hard because I remember I felt like I also had to like prove people wrong because of course like you tell people I was telling people like hey I want to make the NBA and it was like sort of like a joke to a lot of people that like oh this guy's trying to make the NBA like how realistic is that, especially because some people knew me as the guy that didn't fucking make the team. So um, it became also this thing like I had a chip on my shoulder and I proved none of those people wrong. Um, and yeah, I mean it was a failure in a lot of pretty much almost every way, but it was meaningful to me and I don't regret doing that. I don't regret it one bit. So um, yeah, let that mean whatever it means to you, whether that you have like a dream that you want to pursue. I mean, I definitely take a lot of things from that to learn from to dreams I have now. But you know, um, yeah, that's all I can really say about it. Yeah, peace.